Over 2,800 people have made it into the Two Comma Club by making at least $1 million in their business. And you get the opportunity to understand exactly how it is that they have done it on an individual by individual basis through this podcast. If you're interested in learning more about the tidbits and advice that they have, then you should consider subscribing to the Two Comma Club newsletter, where you'll get daily updates and advice on the podcast and the things that we are learning from the individuals who have made at least $1 million. Just go to 2ccnewsletter.com or click the link in the description down below and subscribe.
I was this close to going to prison, and the IRS taking my house, my cars, my family. Like, yeah, that's a whole disaster. And how did I should explain how I got into that mess to begin with. It had to do with I was making a lot of money, but I wasn't paying my taxes quarterly, and I was, and then I'd file a couple extensions, and then all of a sudden I had this tax bill of $30,000, and I was like, oh shoot! So I made more money to pay off that 30 grand, and as you make more money, well, you have to pay taxes on that new money you're making, right? And so I'd pay off the old tax, and then all of a sudden, after filing two more extensions, my new taxes were due, and now I owned $50,000. And so I was always playing this catch-up game of paying off my old taxes. I was making more and more money, and it just kept on compounding and getting worse and worse and worse as I was making more and more money, as quote unquote being successful and winning all these awards. But I was a horrible steward of my money, and I realized that I'm not good at doing that. So I need to hire somebody who is. And so that's how I got in that mess, and got out of it by implementing Profit First and that book, The Blessed Life.
Welcome back to episode 8 of the Two Comma Club podcast. Today, Chris and I are joined with Joe McCall. So, Joe McCall, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everybody kind of what you're in and a little bit of your background of becoming an entrepreneur.
What's up? I'm Joe McCall, and I've been doing this real estate business for a long time, full-time since 2009, kind of dabbling in and out of real estate since 2006. I started my podcast in 2011, and been teaching and doing deals and teaching ever since. And I love what I do. In fact, I think I have here, you can see the $10 million award, and I have two more of these $1 million. I can't point to. I have four total of those $1 million awards that you can't see over there. But I love what I do, and I'm really passionate about this business. I love helping people, and I love talking about what we do. It's a great business.
It's awesome. So just getting into what you do. So what is kind of your niche? Obviously, in the real estate field, there's a lot of niches. That's kind of what I really enjoy doing as well, Joe. What's kind of your niche in your field, or where you're kind of focused on things these days?
Well, my niche has changed over time. It used to be more, there's a niche inside of real estate called lease options. And there's a niche inside of that called wholesaling lease options. And so um, I started doing deals. I was able to quit my job flipping lease options, or doing what's called wholesaling lease options. And I was making full-time income doing that. And it was like a chapter in a lease option book, or one module in a 10 module course on lease options. It was a strategy. People call it different things at different times, and I didn't invent it, but I went deep into that little sub niche. And I knew, like, I remember I bought my first domain, called wholesalingleaseoptions.com, back before I quit my job in 2009. Because I knew I was onto something, and I had this good niche within a niche. And I remember before quitting my job, I was listening to some guys. There was a podcast at the time called the Internet Business Mastery, I think is what it was called, Internet Business Mastery. That was 2007 and 8 and 9. And I remember Jeff Walker at the time, and Frank Kern, a bunch of other guys. I was kind of following them, and I was really interested because I saw the guys that were teaching at the local real estate clubs. And I remember, I want to be like them someday. I want to teach and help other people and make great money doing it also. And I remember seeing the checks. They would show testimonial checks of students that were doing deals. And at the time, when I first started seeing that, I thought, that's complete BS. There's no way. That's fake. That's stupid. It's a scam. But then when I finally stopped like overanalyzing everything, started taking action. I bought a guy's course. I started doing deals, and I became one of those guys with the check. And I realized this is real. Like these were real checks. These are real deals. I'm actually making real money doing this. Wouldn't it be cool to help other people do this as well? So while I was doing real estate, I was also studying and learning how to build funnels. We didn't call them funnels at the time, but like how to sell information. And I just fell in love with that business. And I started, one of the guys I started following was Russell Brunson way back. People say like he became big when he started ClickFunnels. He was big before that. He was well known in the internet marketing space. And so I remember watching him when he was doing stuff like micro continuity. He had a program called that, and he had other programs. But anyway, I thought I want to be like that. And I started doing deals. And about 2 years later, it took me about 2 years to really kind of create my course, create a podcast, and I started taking seriously content marketing. And Russell and I became friends about 2013, 2014, because he owned some real estate in St. Louis. And so I kind of helped him get rid of some of those deals. And yeah, so it's been a wild ride, a lot of fun. My first Double Comma Club award was 2017 is the date on there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow, that's phenomenal. So you got into the online marketing space. Was it through some of those individuals that also got you in real estate, or how did you kind of come across that world and get into it?
Well, I had a friend who was getting into real estate and was making money. And he started telling me about all the success he had. And he was buying at the time Russ Whitney's programs. Russ Whitney had a huge, $100 million a year coaching program, and he was selling information products. And the guy bought his stuff, and I was going through it, and it was actually really good. And he recommended I read this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read that book. It lit me up. And then he connected me with somebody he knew that was doing real estate deals. He was building duplexes in Austin, Texas. And he recommended I go talk to this guy. So I called him up and I scheduled time to go visit him in Austin to go look at some of the new duplexes he was building. And I was still, boy, this was 2003, 2004. And so I went and saw his duplexes, and he told me, he said, there are two books that you should read. Rich Dad Poor Dad, and another book called The Secrets of a Millionaire Landlord, and by a guy named Robert Sheeman. And I read that book and I devoured it. And that's when I kind of learned about lease options. But I started buying a lot of used courses on eBay. And I started buying because I couldn't afford the Russ Whitney's programs. I couldn't afford some of these other courses.
Those courses, up front are
Yeah.
quite expensive, especially in today's landscape. It's like the first one I ever bought, they pitched me 16,000 and I ended up getting it for 3K without the one-on-one coaching and stuff of that nature. But it's like quite the barrier to entry, especially if it's your first time, being
Yeah.
introduced to
Well,
this realm. It's like,
and thank
wow.
God for eBay too, because I couldn't afford anything. So they would come to the local real estate clubs and they would advertise their stuff. And then I would go and buy it used on eBay, which whatever. I mean, that's whatever. But like, I knew I wanted to do that someday. And then I had a coach in the real estate space who was local here to St. Louis. And we were kind of friends, but he was also my coach. And then he created a program on short sales and started selling it really well. And I got to watch him as he created the program, where it was not a good program and he was not good at selling from the front of the room. And he got better and better. And pretty soon he was traveling around the country selling this short sale product for $1,000 and making a ton of money doing that. And so I got to watch him, and then he started a mastermind. There's so much to be said about networking. Your network can determine your net worth. It's totally true. So he started hanging out with other people that were doing what he was doing. And I started hanging out with him and joining the masterminds that he was a part of, or like he was doing himself, whatever. And so I started becoming friends with other real estate gurus. And my attitude was always give, give, give. And so this was before people were interviewing each other on podcasts like this. And I would just say I was doing this niche within a niche, and I knew that I wasn't a competitor to these gurus because what I was doing was so niched down. And so I just started, I became friends with them and I started saying, hey, listen, would you like me to teach your audience what I'm doing? I'll give away everything and I'll teach and not ask for anything in return. So they started inviting me to their boot camps and I would teach and just give everything away. And their audience fell in love with me and they were like, this Joe's amazing. He's awesome. So I was building up and edifying the main speaker guru. So then I started getting invited to a lot of different boot camps and workshops to speak and teach. And then I started sitting down with this friend of mine. I said, hey, I want to create a course. How do I do it? And so he gave me some advice and he really helped me with, being a go-giver first. And if you want to be invited on these people's platforms, give, give, give without expecting or asking for anything in return. And it'll come back to you. And so it's totally true. It does. And I just started being a generous go-giver. And I started getting invited. And then they started asking me, hey, do you want to sell your program here? And yeah, we split the profits 50-50 and I could sell it really well. And the funny thing is I was selling these programs to people who already had programs on the similar stuff. Like I was speaking at an event with a lady who was mainly had a course on lease options, and I was selling my own course on lease options, and people were buying both of them. And this was, it really dawned on to her, like, oh my gosh, I think people want more of what they already have. And people
Yeah.
don't just buy one program on one topic. People will buy multiple 3 or 4 programs because we all have different perspectives on the thing. And so she was really good at emphasize this thing, and I was good at this thing and emphasize this thing. I appealed to people that she didn't appeal to, and my approach was more comfortable for some of her students. So like we both made a lot of money together selling our similar products to the same audiences. So yeah, and then this whole go-giver mentality really helped me with the podcast. At the time, there was only 2 or 3 real estate investing podcasts. And so at the time when I called my podcast Real Estate Investing Mastery, it was niched. There was not very many podcasts on real estate investing. Today, I wouldn't start a podcast called Real Estate Investing because there's a million of them. But yeah, and then just one thing happened led to another, and I've been really blessed with having a lot of friends in the industry that I have followed, and I've been constantly trying to be a go-giver and to give more than I'm asking for, and it always comes back 100 times back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that. I love that go-giver mentality. That's one of the things John and I try to do is add a lot of value and promote others. And it just opens a lot of doors, I find, when you don't have an agenda. People can sense you have an agenda or you're just asking for a sale as soon as you meet them. That's such a turnoff. But so I like really, Joe, we can both resonate with you just adding value. And then how it turns out, you reap what you sow. If you turned into a affiliate program, did you even know what an affiliate program was when you got started and how those things took off?
Well, I knew that, the promoters got 50% of whatever you sold, right? I
Yeah.
understood that game. Um, and I kind of, we didn't have really webinars at the time. Well, we kind of did, but it was mainly you needed to learn how to sell from the front of the room. And so I started watching other people that could sell from the front of the room. And I made the same mistakes that everybody makes where I was thinking, well, if I just teach, the people will want what I have. And then I would start my sales presentations when I first got started with, I'm not going to be like all these other guys that just sell, sell, sell. I'm going to teach you everything. And then I'm going to give you, but I would sell horrible. I would goose egg whenever I did that. But when I would, it's kind of like, it's kind of hard to explain, but I started learning how to sell better without giving everything away, but still giving just enough and teaching the what, but not the how. There's a difference. If you start teaching the how in your sales presentations, people will love you, but they won't buy anything because they're stuffed, they're full, they can't take anymore. They don't, they feel like they have already all that they need. They're going to love you. So there's this balance of doing that. And so I remember when I was selling, I was just trying to be myself. And one of the main gurus at the time told me, he said, Joe, don't you ever go to a speaker training class. You just keep on doing what you're doing. And so there's this element of you got to learn how to sell, but at the same time, you need to learn how to be yourself. and not just copy everybody else, but at the same time, like there's some basic fundamental principles of selling that you need to learn from, right? So like I can't go and try to be Tony Robbins. At the time there was a famous guru that was traveling and speaking and selling really, really well. His name is Chris Kirshner. And he was amazing. Like he could sell ice to an Eskimo. He could sell water to a mermaid. I don't know. And if you tried to be like him though, you completely flop. And I couldn't. So, but you can still learn from guys like that. You can still learn from things from guys like Russell Brunson and how they do. But if you try to just be like Russell Brunson, it won't work. You've got to be yourself and put some tweaks on it. And you got to practice, man. You got to do a lot of this stuff.
100%. It's so true. I know Russell Brunson talks a lot about like the attractive character framework, and I feel like one of the things that needs to be addressed in that is like people need to understand that, when it comes to showing yourself to the world, right? The most highest frequency that people kind of hone in on is being authentic. And if you're trying to be somebody you're not, people can sense it right away. It's disingenuous. You can't build relationships. But when you're actually being that best version of yourself, you're going to attract the right people and repel the wrong people. And so, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your experience of kind of, transitioning from the job world into the entrepreneur world and how you had to kind of get into your own skin, if you will, and the trials and tribulations associated with that.
Well, yeah. I made a lot of mistakes. Like I was making more money. My goal was to have 6 months of savings in the bank before I quit my job. And I could never get more than 2 or 3 months, but I was making consistently more money doing real estate deals than I was in my job. For 3 months in a row, I made more money doing real estate part-time than I made in my full-time job. So, but my wife and I had agreed that, okay, I'm going to quit my job and we're going to go full board into this. And so it was cut the ships and cut the sails, whatever, and just dive all in 100%, burn the ships. So I did that. I had to do that because I'm not good at multitasking. I was trying to be a jack of all trades, but I was a master of none. So I knew I had to focus if I wanted to do this real estate stuff. So I knew I was going down making money doing real estate, but I also knew in the back of my mind, I knew I could make more money selling information and helping people, doing coaching, selling information products, selling done for you services, and selling software. So I knew I wanted to do that as well. So there were some big mistakes I made. Like number one, I wasn't factoring in for health insurance. That was a big expense. Like, because when you have a W-2 job, your employer pays 50 to 75% of it. Well, all of a sudden I have to pay 100% of it. Not only that though, your rates go up, your premiums go up because you're self-employed. So like that was a $1,000 or $2,000 a month charge, that expense that I wasn't expecting. So that was one little example, but it was one of the biggest ones. The other thing that took me a while to figure out was I was not good with the books, with money, with finances. Like if I look at my checking account, I got the money, I spend it. Not planning ahead or what's going to be due, what's coming up in 30 days, or not planning for taxes because I wasn't used to paying taxes as a W-2 employee. The money came out every 2 weeks out of my paycheck. I had a lot of depreciation and write-offs from the real estate I owned, and I also had a lot of losses when the market crashed in '08 that I was writing off. And then all of a sudden, 2 or 3 years later, about 2010 or 11, 2012, 13, I got into a lot of tax trouble where I owed a bunch of taxes because I was making so much money, but not paying taxes. I was just used to at the end of the year on April 15th, you do your tax return last minute, after filing a couple extensions. Well, that'll catch up to you. So I tell anybody starting now, the most important business book you should read is there's two books I recommend to everybody. Number one, it's a Christian book called The Blessed Life. And that's a very important book. Whether you are a Christian or not, this principle of being a go-giver and and you reap what you sow. And like there's this real principle of being generous. And so it's a great book called The Blessed Life. The second book is Profit First. That should be the business Bible for everybody that's going into business. Profit First is the most important book you'll ever read. And you can read it, but if you don't implement it, then you're stupid. Like it is such an important book because if you start implementing it, your business will always be profitable. All right. Most people take revenue minus expenses equals your profit. And a lot of entrepreneurs are just checkbook business owners. You know, they look at their checkbook. Oh, I got $1,000. I got $20,000, and then they go, spend that money on marketing. Not like stupidly, but they'll go spend it on salaries and overhead and marketing and software and all of this stuff. And then all of a sudden are continually like stressed out because they forgot about this one thing that's due, like taxes, or they forgot about, and then they pay themselves last. They take profit out last. We're not in business. We're not doing all of this just to be a charity, right? Like we're in this business to make a profit. So profit first reverses it. It's revenue minus profit first. That equals expenses. And this sounds so simple, but it's really profound. So every dollar that comes in, you first have to send 5-10% of that to your profit account. You deserve that profit. Second thing was taxes. You take out 10 to 15% of every gross revenue dollar into a tax bucket to pay your taxes because you have to do that. And then third would be your salary, right? You've got to put food on the table. Your family comes first before your employees, right? And then everything left after that is what you can use towards operating expenses. So that could be, let's say you make $100,000 a month and you take out, whatever for taxes, profit, and paying yourself. That leaves 50 grand a month. That's what you can spend on overhead, software, subscriptions, virtual assistants, Facebook ads, all of that other stuff. That's what's left. And so this way, your business will always be profitable because you're always taking profit out first. It sounds really simple, but it's so important, and a lot of people ignore it. And you can't just make more money to get out of whatever trouble you're in. And that's where my mind was for years until I got smacked across the face with IRS liens. So it's like you've got to pay attention to that. And if you're not good at it, hire somebody who is. So my first most important hire was a bookkeeper / executive assistant. And I gave her that book. I said, this is the most, before I hired her, I said, this is your Bible. You're going to implement this book for me, Profit First. And she said, I've read that book 3 times. I said, well, you're hired. This is perfect. And she applies that book to her own personal finances even. So it's like, that will keep you out of trouble. And and you'll also find out maybe you don't need to be making $1 million a month to have the lifestyle dream business that you want. You may only need to make 50 grand a month to live like a rock star. And so it's that, such a good, important principle there. Did that answer the question? I even forget what the question was, but
it does. It really did. I think we had a mentor friend of ours. He talks about that with 2 Club Club and 2X winners. How much are you keeping? It's not how much you make. We always say it's how much you keep. And I think that's spot on. And I really enjoyed a good book by Og Mandino, The Richest Man in Babylon. It has the same principle you're talking about and how to put those things into play, which is just good because one, it's easy to make money, but it's also really easy to spend it as fast. So
these awards appear. A better award would be Net a Million Club.
I agree. That's
Net a Million. There's probably been 3 or 4 or 5,000 of these double comma clubs awards that have been, how many would there have been, do you think, if it was a Net a Million Club? Right? Probably 10% of whatever's been delivered.
I was going to say 10% as well, Joe. I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
Now, of course, Russell, he's brilliant what he did with this,
Market.
Right? Because this is like everybody, but there are a lot of people who made that $1 million, but it cost them $990,000 to make that $1 million. Which, okay, that's fine. I mean, good. It's still a huge milestone. It's still a huge achievement, but it's not how much you make. It's how much you keep. 100%, right? Like, Yeah, I'm thinking about starting a mastermind called Net a Million, but
I like that.
yeah,
I like that. Hey, I want to touch base because John and I both got a faith background. It's a big deal to us. I really like The Blessed Life. I haven't read that, but I have read Go Giver. I think that's a principle that John and I just ask everybody, how can we help? How can we add value to what you're doing? How has that led you? Like, what has that done for you? Obviously, you touched on a little bit what you were doing, but how would you describe that as a business principle, though? Not just your
ah,
faith, which is important, but
great,
like your business.
great question. Are you guys Christians yourself?
We are, yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you this question, but you should ask yourself, do you tithe? Don't answer, but do you tithe? And that is such a lightning bolt, controversial kind of a question in Christian circles. But I think it's one of the most important, fundamental, foundational principles in the Christian life, tithing. Why? Because God commanded that we give him the first fruits. Now, it's not like it's going to keep you out of heaven if you don't tithe, right? And it's not that you're going to necessarily get a bigger reward in heaven if you do tithe. But God has promised blessings, and you can't just say it's an Old Testament thing, because this was before the law, right? That it was created, and you look all throughout the Bible. Um, God Himself even tithed His firstborn, His Son, Jesus, to us, right? And God can do so much more with the 90% than He wants to or will do with 100%. All right. So, like, He wants to bless His people. He wants to bless. I was just reading it this morning in Genesis. He said He blessed the animals. He blessed the trees, the vegetation. He blessed Adam and Eve and said, "Be fruitful and multiply." So He wants His creation to be fruitful and to multiply and to be blessed. Well, one of the main things that He uses to bless us is the tithe, because, and you look at Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel both gave their sacrifices or offerings to God, and God was pleased with one of them and not the other one. And I don't remember, it was Abel who gave the first of his produce. So he harvested a bunch of fruit and vegetables, and he gave the best, the fruit, he gave a certain portion of the best to God as his offering. And then Cain gave just leftovers, kind of not the first fruit of the sheeps or whatever, I forget. And then, but God was pleased with Abel's. Cain got mad, and and that kind of that was a bad story. But like, it's over and over again in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. God wants to bless His people, and he can't bless us if we are hoarding and holding on to everything really, really tightly. And the best way to honor God I think the best way to honor God is to give Him a first of the first fruits, to give it to Him as an offering, as it were. It's not that He needs the money, and it's not that we give so that we can get blessings. It's reverse. We get to give, which is incredible. There's so much joy and satisfaction when we become generous givers. The Bible's full of all these tons of verses about being generous givers. So when we are generous, we're telling God, hey, we trust you more than we do our money, right? You are more important in our lives than all of this money that you've given us. And so when He's looking for stewards that He can, who take the 5 talents and reinvest them and make 5 more. And then we don't want to be the one who takes the talents and hides them and is greedy and selfish and holds them tight. So we need to have open hands. I mean, this book, The Blessed Life, radically changed everything for me. And I was at this place where I was not a consistent tither. I was just kind of inconsistent here and there. I tithed when I had the money. When I felt comfortable enough. I tithed after all of my bills were paid. So it's like, who's more important, the bills or God? Now, the bills are obviously important, but we're talking about eternity here. So I would tithe from my leftovers. No, God wasn't mad at me. He wasn't like judging me and condemning me, but like He couldn't bless me like He wanted to, right? Does that make sense? So, when I was in this place, and I've done podcasts and videos on my channels about this, about I had a $520,000 federal IRS tax lien. And people go to jail for less money than that, what they owe the IRS. So I had a come to Jesus moment. The IRS agent called me to his office and said, "Hey, we need to talk. You're this close to going to jail. I'm going to take everything that you have and throw you in jail and throw your family out on the street." I was like, "You need to take care of this." And so I was like, "Oh my gosh." So this was before I read Profit First. So I had this come to Jesus moment, and he said, "You need to stop worrying about your old taxes, get current on your current taxes." And so that took me about 4, 5, 6 months to get current on my current taxes. And then he said, after you do that, then we'll put you on an installment plan and you can pay off your old taxes. So, all right. Well, that took me about, they put me on like a 10-year plan, and I paid off all my old taxes in about a year and a half or 2 years. And I finally got current on my current taxes, and by implementing Profit First. But also at this time, I read that book, The Blessed Life, and I realized I wasn't consistently faithful with my tithe, giving God the first fruits, the best of the first fruits. And so my wife thought that we were like, she was always been like, "We're tithing, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Um, this is embarrassing, but like, and we would kind of tithe, but not consistently. Sometimes I would only tithe off of the net that I personally received if we had it. So I started being consistently faithful with the tithing 10%, from my opinion, of the gross personal income that I receive before taxes. Well, anyway, turn around. I mean, like, it's a miracle how quickly I paid off that $520,000 tax lien. And then my business became more profitable. It became less stressful, because for a couple of reasons. The biggest reason is I started implementing the tithe, and God has blessed us. Now I'm making more money, take home money, than I ever have. And I'm giving more money than I ever have. And the business is in a much better place. So I'm not saying there aren't challenges. Like, there's good months and bad months, but God's been faithful. And I look at kind of where I was and where I am now and the journey through that. And it's like, thank you, God. Um, because like I was this close to going to prison, and the IRS taking my house, my cars, my family. Like, yeah, that's a whole disaster. And I should explain how I got into that mess to begin with. It had to do with, I was making a lot of money, but I wasn't paying my taxes quarterly, and and then I'd file a couple extensions, and then all of a sudden I had this tax bill of $30,000, and I was like, "Oh shoot!" So I made more money to pay off that 30 grand. And as you make more money, well, you have to pay taxes on that new money you're making, right? And so I'd pay off the old tax, and then all of a sudden, after filing 2 more extensions, my new taxes were due, and now I owned $50,000. And so I was always playing this catch-up game of paying off my old taxes. I was making more and more money, and it just kept on compounding and getting worse and worse and worse as I was making more and more money, as quote unquote being successful and winning all these awards. But I was a horrible steward of my money, and I realized that I'm not good at doing that. So I need to hire somebody who is. And so somebody told me, he said, "You need to stop trying to fix your weaknesses and you need to outsource them." So one of my biggest weaknesses was managing the books. So I gave that to somebody else. And then she's just doing a great job of making sure that all of my affiliates are being paid. My taxes are being paid. I'm getting paid myself with salary. And so anyway, that's how I got in that mess. And, got out of it by implementing Profit First and that book, The Blessed Life.
Love that. I love that. So look at that. Like, how did you come to that realization? I like what you said about, John and I are big believers in who, not how. Like you said, outsourcing your weaknesses. I like that term a lot. I never heard that before, but really goes into what we believe, who, not how. As you start to scale, obviously, the more people, you talk a lot about virtual assistants in your business and what you do. Just talking to our listeners, what is one of the biggest things for you? Like, who's helped you or added value to you that's kind of helped you catapult your business or make things take off for you?
Russell Brunson's been a huge mentor and friend over the years. But I follow a lot of people online. A lot of names you would know, maybe some that you don't. I have a huge swipe file in Evernote. So in Evernote, whenever I see, I'm on everybody's list. So I'm trying to constantly following their funnels, their campaigns, what they're promoting. And I keep this swipe file. And when I see something that I like, that, oh, I could do that, and just kind of tweak it and model it, not copy it, but model it. Then I can, there may be, I can implement some of that. Um, so Frank Kern has been a guy that I've learned a lot from over the years, made a lot of money just doing what he does, made a lot of money doing what Russell Brunson does. There's other guys like that I like, Todd Brown. Um, I've been focusing more and more on continuity right now. And so I've learned a lot over the years from Anthony Morrison, Dan Henry on continuity. Um, this whole Mifke thing that Russell Brunson talked a lot about last year, the most incredible free gift ever, and the linchpin thing is, I've been really implementing that and trying to grow my recurring income. And that's been great. Like, my set it as a goal to make a certain amount of money in monthly recurring revenue. And I'm probably 2/3 of the way there. And so that's been nice. Like, recurring revenue is important because I'm not starting off at zero every month. So I've learned a lot from Russell Brunson and other guys about monthly recurring revenue. Um, there's a guy named Caleb O'Dowd. I've learned a lot from him on how to do webinars. He's a really, really good copywriter. Sometimes, it's just as simple as, like, I need to do a promotion or I need to write an email, and I'll just look up the last few months of emails from some of these guys and to get ideas. I mean, anymore you can create a PDF of 50 Frank Kern emails, upload it to Claude.ai and say, I'm doing this promotion. And this is what I'm offering, and this is who my customer is, and this is what it is. And I want you to write me 10 emails in the style of Frank Kern. See the attached emails from Frank. Like, it's crazy what you can do. And then it'll spit out these emails that are written just like him with his folksy kind of style. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, that's crazy. The technology is a force multiplier, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, especially in today's day and age with the evolution of AI and everything, it just like came by storm, and it's, one of those things where I genuinely believe that, people are going to be left behind if they're not using it. And it's one of those revolutionary kind of pieces of technology. But you said something a moment ago that really caught my interest. We ourselves are also interested in the whole monthly recurring revenue model and all of that stuff. And we've seen a lot of different frameworks out there from different, higher ticket offers that could be broken down into payment plans, or like monthly accountability groups and stuff of that nature. There are other software platforms, membership content sites, etc. What are some of the things that you've kind of been seeing a lot of people have been having success with as you've been modeling what they've been doing? And then what kind of, I guess, products and promotions are you having in that realm?
It's interesting. I've been asking other people that have been in the business longer than I have, what in the past, what has worked well for you? And almost every single one of them say continuity. And if I would have just not stopped doing continuity when I was doing it, because there's the internet marketing world goes through these cycles and phases, and and things start to come back or whatever. Um, and so continuity is nothing new. People were doing continuity a long time ago. And like one guy in particular he's a friend of mine, but he's been doing internet marketing stuff in the real estate space for 20 years, and I've been doing it for 13 years, maybe 25 years. And he was telling me the other day, he said, Joe, I used to do this thing where at the end of every little promotion I did, no matter what it was, maybe it was a $97 product, maybe it was $1,000 webinar, but he always said, hey, if you want my inner circle program thing, just try it out for $1, 30 days, and then 97 a month. It was really simple. And he just kind of forgot about it. And except he didn't forget about it, but like it was at the end of all of his funnels. And once a month, he would do a coaching call, and he would add content in every week into the thing. And I think there was some community aspect to it or whatnot, but it was just almost like an afterthought. And before he knew, it was like at 30 grand a month. And then he got super sick, and with almost a deadly disease, and he could not work for like a year. And that
Mm.
continuity kept him, pretty much kept him making some money from that continuity did. And then he got healthier and then started, doing a bunch of other things. He kind of stopped doing that. And he's looking back thinking, what did why did I stop doing that? I was having golf the other day with a guy who's one of the biggest gurus in the real estate space, and he's kind of getting out of it. He's just wanting to do some other things, real successful. And he was telling me, Joe, don't try to be the big shot guy doing $10 million a month. Don't, it's just not worth it building a huge business. He said the best thing that I ever did in my business was continuity. He had this thing called, I forget what it was called, but anyway, it was just a dollar trial to $97 a month continuity. He said that's the best thing I ever did in my business was building that continuity out, because for him it built the value of his business really high so he could sell it at a multiple. But it also was just when he was going through rough personal things, having that monthly continuity, he had to downsize his business once or twice and let everybody go and rebuild himself up. And, you know, um, and it was that continuity that kept him afloat. So anyway, I, that continuity aspect is really important. What I'm doing now is I have this $97 a month thing. I also have this $7 a month thing that I've been playing a little bit with, and I'm thinking about getting it back in again, but um, I'm doing a lot more low ticket stuff right now. I do a webinar that's more like a workshop for $7. There's a bunch of little upsells in there. One of the upsells is a dollar trial into my continuity, $97 a month. And then I sell my main course, and I give, as part of the main course that I sell, there's also 2 free months of the continuity. And if you want to continue after the second month, then you have to pay the 97 a month into that. I'm doing a lot of these. Hey, I'm doing this class. It's free if you're a member of this 97 a month thing. But if you'd like to watch this class, it's just $1. And I'm testing different trials now, 7 days, 14 days, 30 days. But just sign up, get a trial, get access to this class for free, and then just cancel it anytime. Not a big deal. So I've been doing all of these different little front end things to get people into my continuity, and it's growing pretty well. I've been kind of seriously focusing on it for about 3 months now, and I'm at about 160 members at $100 a month. So that's 16 grand a month with just continuity from that. My goal is to get to 1,000 members. So I got a long ways to go, but it's a long play. And I've been talking to other guys that we're doing a lot of high ticket coaching, and it seems like that's just getting harder and harder, especially with ads, to go from an ad to a 15-minute VSL to book a call to sell them into a $5,000-$10,000 package, right? That's gotten really hard to do. It can be done, but it's just a lot more challenging. So these are guys that used to do continuity. When high ticket became a thing, they stopped doing continuity and just focused on high ticket, made a lot of money, but it's gotten harder. Now they're going back to continuity, and all of their promotions are around first getting people into community, software, resources and things like that, into continuity, and then selling coaching to them after they're in there. So like, for what I'm seeing in my perspective, I'm seeing a lot more people going into low ticket and then into continuity, and then from there selling them into the high ticket coaching. I just think it's easier to do that. I'd much rather have, believe it or not, 1,000 low ticket customers than 100 high ticket customers, because it's a much longer play. I can make more money over the long term with more low ticket buyers. Because of software, I get really good affiliate commissions from the software that I sell, that I use and that I sell, right? And I have my own continuity, and then a buyer's a buyer's a buyer. So a lot of these people, when they buy my $7 thing, will buy my $50 thing, will buy my $1,000 thing, et cetera, going up and down that line.
Nice. We've been mixing with the same things. We've been looking at our high ticket versus continuity, and our low ticket things doing well, and we're plugging along with that. But I think that's the theme we see as well. something I want to talk to you hit about some of your mistakes. I appreciate you being vulnerable with us. I think it's a big deal. It's just being honest where you came from and where you are now. And I appreciate that because a lot of people do want to keep their cards close to their chest. But with you, what's kind of been your unique ability, Joe? Like things you've done well. What do you enjoy doing that you really just kind of zone in on your unique ability, or people call it your secret sauce? What's kind of your favorite thing to do in your business?
Well, I love creating marketing campaigns. I mean, I really geek out about that. Um, I've when I can sit down with somebody and kind of look at their business and see what they're doing, and I could spot like, hey, this is you should go deep with this thing, and this would sell really well because this is kind of a different angle, different perspective on things. And here are like two or three different campaigns that you could run to get people into that. Like and so I enjoy that and I'm good at that. I feel like where I can say, uh, yeah, like create this thing and then this thing and then sell it this way. And here's a good free lead magnet. And you should do a 15-minute webinar, or you should do a free book to a VSL to a coaching application, or create a $7 a month thing. And then from there, sell them into this. I love doing that, creating like these kind of campaigns that can create a lot of cash quickly and then create some lifelong customers. And I don't know what you call it. Frank Kern calls it hatching evil schemes. So I'm trying to find a better term for that, you know. Um, but I can relate to Frank Kern because I've heard him talk about this. Like, he really enjoys doing that, hatching evil schemes um, for people. And I enjoy doing that too. I'm not as good as he is at that, but maybe I am. I don't know.
That's
I
awesome.
think
Yeah, I love that concept, hatching evil schemes. That's the most unique way that I've heard that phrased. But
And that's how Frank Kern actually, that's him. That's his, like, that's what he talks about. Like, that's how he talks. Right.
mhm.
Um, so I'm trying to find the Christian version of that. You know, there's something else too. There's a really good video. You guys should look it up. Don't watch it with your kids, but he did this video, the two commandments in business, and you can find it on YouTube. And he did it back in his days when he was probably high on drugs and he had long hair and he was a surfer dude and whatever. But like, he was really, really smart marketer, and he is still. But he did a video called "The Two Commandments in Business" or something, business. And a guy was interviewing him, and he said, "Number one, thou shalt not um, fart around." They used the other F word, and because so many times we're out there just farting around, and like he said, you should imagine if Osama bin Laden put a gun to your head and said, "Build a website." You wouldn't say like, "Oh, let me buy another course on how to do that." No, you would go to YouTube and you would say how to build a website, and then it would say get a domain. So you'd go get a domain, and then you would go to YouTube and you would figure out and you would build a website. It may look completely janky, but you'd get it done. Just so then you wouldn't get shot dead, right? Well, why don't we do that in real life? Well, we're just farting around. We're just like, playing around. And then the second rule commandment is thou shalt not be a sissy, but he used the other word. Okay. And he said, you're just so afraid. You'll gladly go out and spend $5,000 on this coaching program or this course because it gives you this, rush of endorphins, like you feel like you're accomplishing something, but you won't spend $5,000 on Facebook ads or an ad campaign. You're just afraid. You're not taking this seriously. You're not in the fight. You're not in the ring. Yeah, you're going to get punched around. You're going to get bruised. You're going to get knocked down, but you're going to get back up, and you're going to. So like, stop being a sissy and so stop being so afraid. And so I thought that was phenomenal advice, and I've really I've been for my own self thinking about that a lot, and then also coaching other people of that. Stop farting around. Is this a hobby or is this a business? And stop being so afraid to make offers and to spend money on ads and to do the podcast and to do the videos and to pay for the coach or the video editors or the companies that will help you produce more content, better content. And So anyway, it's a good YouTube video. You should go. It's about 5 minutes long. It's really good.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out.
Check
Uh,
it out too.
I like how you talk about fear in business and everything. I have a personal belief that you, to succeed in business, deal with a lot of fear, and I think that the best way to deal with fear is with faith. And it's like there's this quote that I heard a long time ago, and I actually had it hanging on my wall as I grew up as a kid. My mom just printed it out on a piece of paper, and we stuck it there with a thumbtack. And it was basically saying that faith is walking in the dark, knowing that with every step you take, you're either going to be given more ground to step on or you're going to be taught how to fly. And it's like, it's so interesting that concept of how, like, if you really think about the logistics of that scenario where you're walking in the dark, you can't see, you have no idea what's going on. It's scary, right? You might be hearing sounds here and there and you don't know what's up. And that's kind of like looking at business. And there might be this point, which I kind of find to be the most pivotal point for a lot of business owners, where they hit the point of essentially no return, where it's like you have to burn the boats, like you mentioned, and everything of that nature. And that's where theoretically you're walking. And if you're in the dark, you can feel with your feet that there's more ground in front of you. But eventually, when you're going to get taught how to fly, is the moment where there's nothing there. You can't feel anything. So you have to take that leap of faith, essentially. And that a lot of times tends to be, I think, the pivotal moment where people tend to actually succeed, but they have to have that faith in order to do so. Was there any particular moment in your journey that was kind of that pivotal moment where you had to take the leap of faith?
Oh yeah. I've done that many times because I heard somebody say that he was talking about his own story, and he said something along the lines of like, um, no, somebody was talking about him because this guy was really successful. And one of the things he said is that this is one of those guys that he's so successful because he just jumps off the building and he'll figure out how to fly as he's falling. I thought, oh, I like that. And so I grabbed onto that. This is, I don't know, remember 20 years ago. And I thought, I want to be that guy who's not afraid to jump off the building and just figure out how to fly as he's falling. And that means you're going to take a lot of risks. And this is why very few people succeed in this entrepreneur business, right? They're not willing or too afraid or aren't comfortable enough or aren't willing to take the risks. I've coached, I've been coaching people for a long, long time. And fortunately, maybe 5 to 10% of my students ever are successful doing what I teach them to do. Only 5 to 10% actually go and do deals. And I'm just like, I don't understand why. I give them everything they need. But you go back to, and it's the same thing. They're afraid to take that step of faith and actually do the work. They're just afraid. So I've had that many times. Quitting my job was the first one, right? After that, getting into stop not doing as much real estate, but doing more information marketing, that was a big step of faith. I was at this point too where I was wanting to travel. We have 4 kids. I was wanting to start traveling around the world with my kids. We homeschooled them. And but I wanted to my wife and I had been to Prague in the Czech Republic many times. We wanted to go live there for 3 months with our kids. And so I was like, how can I do this? How can I run my business while living in Europe for 3 months with 4 kids? But we said, all right, let's write down. And at the time, I wrote down in doing a real estate deal all of the steps involved. And then I asked myself, how can I do none of this? How can I get somebody else to do it all for me? And I created the system where I started doing deals by partnering with other people. And also in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, this would be a great course. This would be a great program. So I called it automated wholesaling, and I sold tons and tons of those courses. But like that was a big leap of faith. Now we're living in Prague for 2 to 3 months at a time. We did that twice. And then we also took a 3-month RV trip with my wife and our 4 kids for 3 months going around the northwestern half of the country. So like that was a big step of faith, but it's like, we'll just figure it out, and that's a great thing about internet marketing stuff too, is like, you can run that business. You can do that from anywhere in the world. So I just started asking bigger questions like, who, not how, like we talked about that before. All of these things, like how I understand all these steps. How can I do none of this? How can I set up systems and people to run this stuff for me so that I can work just 2, 3 hours a day from an RV in a national park or a coffee shop in Prague? Um, and just start thinking and asking yourself bigger and better questions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'll
Yeah.
figure it out. You'll figure it out. It's like, here's another big thing I tell all my students, like, stop asking what if and instead ask what next. Because like, if you keep on, you get stuck in this what if mode and you have to have all your I's dotted and all your T's crossed before you take any action, you'll be stuck in that vicious professional student trap forever. And so you've got to get out and say, all right, you get the ready, fire, aim approach, and just get out there and start doing it, and you'll figure it out, and you'll build this thing as you're falling from the. And if you don't, well, you learned something, right? It's not failure is it's just a better way to a simpler way, faster, easier way to learn what works and what doesn't work. And so that's why most people fail is they're stuck in what if mode. What if, what if, what if? I call them yeah butter. Stop being a yeah butter. Just stop figuring out steps. Stop worrying about steps 7 and 8. Just start figuring out steps 1 and 2 and then do it. And then after you do step 1, ask what next. Then you do step 2. Then what next? Then you do step 3. And then you'll start having success. And I encounter that for my own self over and over and over again. Yeah. Those are the people that will be successful in business.
I was just going to ask you as we wrap up, what's one piece of advice? But I think you gave it. Quit being a yeah butter. And I just like the terminology how you said doing the next thing. I always say it's a 12-step thing is do the next right thing. John and I were just talking yesterday, some stuff we're putting together, and it's just doing the next right thing, just doing the next thing versus having. And I'm the kind of guy who wants to have all the steps figured out. So I just not that I'm analysis by paralysis, but I want to know what the end looks like at the end and reverse engineer it. But really, you just got to start and then start putting the pieces together with the end in mind. So I like how you said that. So really
Yeah.
appreciate your time today, Joe. Done with so
Yeah,
much
guys.
knowledge, so many books. I always ask for books. You gave us about 4 or 5. So thank you. You added a lot of value there. I appreciate it. And it's just great to connect with you. How can our audience, how can folks connect with you? Or what's the best way to get in touch with you or learn more about you, Joe?
My YouTube channel. I think I'm really putting a lot of focus. Wish I would have done that. It's funny. Like I remember in 2011 thinking, man, I missed the podcast wave. I missed the boat for podcasting. But you know what? I was like, screw it. I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to do it for the next 20, 30 years. I want to be the longest running real estate investing podcast in podcasting. And I'm going to do that. So I just really started focusing on YouTube, a year or 2 years ago. And I wish I would have started focusing on that 10, 15 years ago. So I've got a lot of catching up to do, but I have that same attitude. I'm going to be doing my YouTube real estate channel for the next 20, 30, 40 years until I can't do it anymore. And so I know that momentum will come. So the biggest thing is like start now. They say, you've heard this a million times. The 2 best times to plant a tree was 20 years ago and today. So get started right now. Stop farting around. Stop being a sissy and just say, all right, I'm gonna do it today. It's not too late to miss the challenge boat, the webinar boat, the high ticket boat, like the low ticket boat, the YouTube, the Twitter, the X, the TikTok stuff. Like just start doing it now. And you'll find your groove. You'll find where you should be, what you're better at, and just focus in deep on that and don't quit.
100%. So one of the
Cool.
things that I like to ask all of our guests here, as kind of a final question is just a little bit more about kind of your experience with what funnels you found have kind of worked the best for you and things of that nature in terms of more of the frameworks and what you would promote to somebody as a good framework if they wanted to achieve the 2 Comma Club award or even the 2 Comma X and things of that nature.
Yeah, the most important thing, and I got to wrap it up here. The most important thing is always be focusing on building your list. Like that's the most valuable asset you can have. So I always, in all my content, I give away free stuff, and not books, not courses or videos, like really small, simple, practical stuff. Like I did a video the other day talking about a script to use when you're talking to realtors. And so I did a video on, hey, use this script when you're talking to realtors to find deals. And I gave that script away as a free lead magnet, right? So always be building your list, always, like, and keep it super simple. It could be a checklist, a script, a spreadsheet, a PDF, something, right? So I'm constantly building my email list. So always be giving away good, simple things that are useful for free. Second thing, really focus on low ticket right now. I think low ticket is really important. A $7 workshop, a $27 workshop, something that's different and unique where you're teaching and delivering a lot of value. And then go in and buy, like, find these other people that are doing them and go and buy all their upsells and funnel hack what they're doing. Russell Brunson's, he just messaged me a couple of weeks ago. He's coming out with some new funnels, and I was in a mastermind with him 3 years ago, and he messaged me and said, out of the blue, it's like, Joe, I was looking at my notes and I saw this thing that you were talking about, and I'm going to start doing it. Like, I'm adding it now to all of my funnels. It was a little thing I share that I do. It's like the last upsell in my series of upsells in a thing. And so, like, when get on his email list and buy everything that within reason, right? Like, but like, go through his book funnels and copy it and model it. What I mean by swipe it, like save it. And you'll start seeing, well, they sell this, and then you sell this, and then you sell this. So, and then you can start asking yourself, how could I model that? So low ticket's working really well right now. And I have upsells after that, and then some downsells after that. And then I get them into the workshop. And then in the workshop, that's when I sell my $1,500 course. But the workshop isn't just a webinar. It's like really good content. Halfway through, I pitch my course, and at the end, I pitch my course. And my course is not just information. My course is a lot of help with implementation software for real estate. It's access to the money, the funds to close your deals, and the coaching and stuff like that. So then people who don't buy with that, we follow up with them with webinars. Webinars have always worked, and they will always work. The traditional, normal hour and a half webinar works. So we sell the course from a webinar, and then after that, we sell them, once they're in my kind of ecosystem, my world, we sell once in a while. We'll run a coaching campaign to get applications. We sell high ticket coaching. I'll sell a live workshop where I sell coaching at the workshop. I'll do a 5-day challenge to my list where I sell my program from the 5-day challenge. I'm constantly, at least once a week, I'm emailing my list every day, but once a week, I'm promoting something of my own, something that's different. It doesn't have to be something you already created. It could be something that you're creating new. Like, I just did a how to get cash flow from vacant land without using any of your own money mini course. And I used that to get people into my $97 a month continuity. I know I'm giving you a lot, but that's kind of what I'm seeing, is give away a lot of good free things that people can opt in for to get, and do videos of you teaching that and showing them that. And then get them into a low ticket continuity. I mean, a low ticket workshop, webinar, course. With free webinars, we're doing maybe 25, 35% show up rates, which is horrible. It's really, really bad. But when I charge $7 for it, I'm getting 85, 90% show up rates. And I'm getting just as many people there. So, and then, just see what other people are doing and model it. And I've never reinvented the wheel. Everything that I've done that's worked has been something that I got as an idea from somebody else. And I'm like, that looks like a real good idea. I'm going to try that.
Love it. Love it. Well, really appreciate your time today, Joe. Thanks so much for connecting with us. Thanks for joining us today. We really, really appreciate your time. A lot of good stuff in here today. So thanks so much, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, guys. We'll see you.
Thanks. Thanks, Joe.